Welcome to the Sideline. I'm Andy Katz. Well, this is going to be a home for a lot of original content in college sports and beyond. Now, of course, you're going to get a lot of that similar content that I produce for NCAA platforms, Big Ten Network, and other places. But I needed a home for a lot of those interviews with the newsmakers in this space. So where are you going to find it? Right here at the Sideline. Let's get to it. And welcome, everyone, to a preseason chat. I'm Andy Katz, pleased to be joined by Kevin Willard, head coach of Villanova. And Kevin, I think back to when you went from Seton Hall to Maryland, about how you had played Maryland, you knew about the program, you knew about its history. And now I'm thinking the same thing, like you knew about Villanova, you played Villanova, but both programs are a little provincial in that, sort of they have their own people. They're very prideful. And you were able to sort of crack the code at Maryland. You weren't sort of technically one of theirs. You led them to the NCAA tournament, to the Sweet 16. And now you're at Villanova, not technically sort of one of them, yet there's great enthusiasm and excitement for your arrival to be a part of this family. What's that like to sort of be that outsider and come in and really embrace it?
Well, I think what helps, Andy, to be honest with you, is like, you're talking about unbelievable fan bases and alumni. Maryland has unbelievable fan base, has unbelievable alumni support. And then I come here and it's like, this is such a great community. That they're so passionate about basketball. And I know it so well, 12 years going against Jay and at Seton Hall in the Big East. I got to really know so many Villanova people. So I understood the culture. I understood how much pride they have for this program. I got to see really like the former players, knowing those guys, battling against them. So it's like, when you join a great community and you join a great fan base, it makes it so much easier to kind of get in there because, you have so many people that want to support you. You have so many people that want the program to do well. I was just lucky that I've been at four colleges now that have just great fan bases and great alumni.
What was it like? Let me ask you, what was it like competing against sort of the peak Jay Wright era?
Oh, yeah, no, it was the peak. 16, 17, 18, 19, even really 15. It was tough. I always admired it. I admired what Jay did, the culture he built. I think everyone in college basketball tried to do the same thing he was doing. I mean, they had such great toughness. I always told you, like they ran a middle pick and roll. Like you had to stop a middle pick and roll. You had Arch, you had Colin, you had Brunson, you had those three guys coming off pick and rolls. You either had, Chris Jenkins rolling up or you had Josh Hart and, they ran one play and they executed it to perfection, but they just got you with how disciplined they were. They got you how tough they were on defense. Offensive rebounding, you had to have special drills. I had three drills I did in preseason just for Jay's teams. We had a jump stop drill, we had a closeout drill, and we had a middle pick and roll where we had to defend the roll replace. So I admired this program just because of the way the players played, so much passion, so much toughness, and it's an honor to be kind of part of that.
Your love of the Big East, well documented, but you really kind of grew up in it as an adult. What is it about this conference that you just absolutely love and have embraced?
It's kind of goes back to like my first college basketball game I watched was in Madison Square Garden, Georgetown St. John's, Ewing Mullen. And I just remember like just watching that and being like that this is where I want to play. I want to be part of not only playing in Madison Square Garden, but playing against St. John's, playing against Georgetown. And then, my years at Pitt, like I got to play against Allen Iverson, Ray Allen, Alvin Williams, Kerry Kittles. Man, the list goes on. Scooney Penn, BC was in there. Miami was in the league. And so I saw like I played against so many great players and just had so much respect for how hard it was to win. And then when the new Big East when we kind of when me, Jay, and Ed, Mac, kind of were like the ones that kind of were like, all right, is this thing going to work or not work? Um, I saw how much the coaches took care of each other. We recruited for each other. We tried to help each other in recruiting. And so my love for the Big East was even more because now all of a sudden I had colleagues that wanted us to succeed and to win. And I just always felt like the Big East was always one big family. Ever since I played in it, my first meetings down at Ponte Vedra when I walked in, and it was Calhoun, Boeheim, Patino, Huggins, Jay Wright, Mick Cronin, Buzz was at Marquette, I think, and sitting there going like, man, I'm like 35 years old, and I'm going, oh, it's gonna be tricky. It's always been such a great conference.
You've done a great job wherever you've been of making sure that you've either adjusted your personnel, and if you had a big, you go through the big. If you have guards that can shoot, you go through that. What do you hope? And Villanova obviously has been sort of guard you over the last decade or so. What do you hope in the next year to two is the identity of this program?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, Andy, is like, I understand this past culture so well. I understand what Jay did, and it's just getting, and I think Kyle did a great job. I think Kyle did a really, really good job under a tough circumstance, especially in the changing landscape of NIL, that just blew up college sports over the last 3 years. But for me, it's just having that unbelievable toughness. That's kind of how we built this roster this year. I think the biggest thing is, and I think the reason why Villanova was always, he won 16 and 18 in the Final Four and 22, consistency. Just being as consistent with our roster, making sure we get guys that want to be here, that want to stay here, even though you're going to have to pay them to stay. But that at least having that consistency in your roster so that you can build that toughness, you can build that culture of winning. And I think, I look at Florida, I look at UConn the last couple of years. You look at, they had guys that had been on their roster for 2 or 3 years. They added a good piece. Cam Spencer for UConn was huge. I look back at that addition. So doing really just getting back to being a consistently really tough team.
Well, and Villanova actually, regardless of coaches, has always done a great job of keeping players. It's really not been a revolving door at all, and that's built, experience and love of the fan base and so on. The other thing is that you mentioned NIL. When I think of the Big East in this new era, to me, right off the bat, there are three programs that I know are not going to go away. Like they're all in. And to me, it's Villanova, UConn, and St. John's are the three for sure. I'm not saying Creighton wouldn't or Xavier, but those are three I think you can count on are all in. What have you found already with the alignment top down and within the donor class?
Yeah, I think, I think it's ever evolving, Andy. Like it really is. Like last year, everybody had to spend all this money because everybody thought they're, with the house case. And so everybody the money was ridiculous the way it was this year. Now everyone's we just had a 2 hour staff meeting about like, all right, what are we going to pay everybody? Like, we have 12 official visits coming in. What are we going to do with freshmen? Because if house really does have teeth, and the clearinghouse has teeth, I think it changes the game dramatically of how much you're going to be able to spend. So now it becomes a much more, instead of last year just giving money away pretty much, now it's pretty much sitting there going, okay, we got to be really analytical about this. We have to use every tool in our power to make sure that we spend the money the way we need to spend the money. And, the alumni and the University of Villanova have been phenomenal. They understand it. But at the same time, we're not going to go away from our Catholic mission and what we want to do here and the type of team I want to have. I think that you still have to recruit kids that want to play at Villanova, that want to play at such a great institution. So that is the balancing act, and it's not as easy as everybody thinks it is. To be honest with you, it's kind of difficult, but the biggest thing, you just got to keep evolving. You just can't sit there and say, okay, this is what we did last year, or this is what we did. It's kind of like, I had an NCAA rules session the other day, And like, one of them was like, you can give $60 to somebody, or I'm like, what? I'm like, we're giving $600,000. I'm like, why do we have rules? Like, why haven't we evolved our rules there? And I think I just keep telling my assistants, we just got to keep evolving. Don't get frustrated. Um, we have no rules right now, so let's just kind of find out what we do and build the best team, and more importantly, give the best experience for these kids. Like, that's still got to be part of it. Like, make sure they're getting a great education, making sure they're having a great time, making sure we're getting them better as people, as players. Don't lose our mission as what we first got into this business for was to help kids achieve their goals.
So last year, I mean, obviously Derek Queen, no brainer. He's playing on a All-American high school team. But the backcourt that you put together, none of those three guys were household names before they got to Maryland. And you and your staff did a great job of finding the right fit, and then obviously allowing them to reach their full potential during that year last year. I'm not trying to pin that on this roster, but did you go through any of that with this group of saying, okay, who fits what we need that may not be, big time transfer and paying all this money, but this is the kind of player we need. We think this player is going to really blossom under what we do.
Yeah, I mean, I got hired April 2nd, and we didn't really have anybody on the roster. So really, for this year's roster was more about how do we build something that we can build upon. I just didn't want to go out and get six fifth-year seniors and roll the dice and see how it works, and then be in the same position next year. I wanted to get a roster that had really good balance. Uh, Wanted to bring in some freshmen that we could develop. I knew I had a couple guys at Maryland that were really good that didn't get a chance to play as much, but I think, like a Malachi Palmer who didn't play that much, but man, I think Malachi can be a pro. So he was really important. Matt Hodge, who was here, I had recruited Matt. Um, and I know the type of character Matt has. He's an unbelievable young man, and because I recruited him, I knew the potential he had. So Matt was important. Tyler Perkins was really important for me because he's the only one that scored a point in the Big East game on this roster. And then, like Bryce Lindsey to me, anybody that can shoot 44% as a freshman in a really good conference, I think he's one of those guys that can surprise a lot of people. So we built it in a way that, I think guys are going to get much better, but also, we can retain those guys, and those guys can make a huge jump in year two.
Scheduling wise, again, Villanova always played a good schedule. It appears you've done sort of the same blueprint. What were your thoughts there with a roster that you didn't know, what you really have, because you had to get this thing done, obviously, in the off season?
Yeah, scheduling. I think scheduling is probably the most important thing you can learn as a college coach. And I think the metrics are changing so much more that you're benefiting playing better games. What I loved about the Big Ten Conference was the road games. It's so hard to win on the road in the Big Ten Conference because the student sections and the crowds are phenomenal. So, um, you know, BYU was already set up. Most of the schedule was pretty set up. I wanted to make sure that we had enough. We didn't have enough high-end games when I got in, so going at Wisconsin, at Michigan, and bringing Pitt in, I thought would balance off the schedule really well. And again, Michigan, I have such a good program, and Wisconsin, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, I don't know why I'd want to play Greg and play Greg's team again because he's one of the best tactical coaches, but it's like putting yourself through a blender. That offense, man, you know what's coming and you can't stop it. I mean, Greg's teams are so well coached, uh, and I don't know why I scheduled that game. I think I must have been tired or something when I agreed to it. But we get those guys coming home in year two, get them at the Wells Fargo Center. Should be great. I also realize that I want to have great non-conference games for our fans. Like I'm more moving towards, Brad Underwood said this to me last year, just playing all high majors. Let's go out and play, go play 34 all high majors and It's great for TV. It's great for the fan bases, and really have fun with your non-conference schedule, and not get penalized for going 5-5 in your non-conference because you play 10 high majors. I think you should be rewarded for playing that schedule as much as anything else.
What's the right balance between Wells Fargo, home of the Sixers and Flyers, and the Finn on campus?
Well, the Finn is an unbelievable home court advantage. It really is. And I hadn't been uh, I hadn't been in it since it got renovated with people. The renovation they did such a great job here with that. But I still think the Wells Fargo is important. It's a you get a different crowd down at the Wells Fargo, probably a little bit more younger. I think it's a chance for more people to get involved in the game. My last 3 years at Seton Hall that we played everything at the Wells Fargo. The atmosphere was unbelievable. We pulled up and the students are tailgating. So I think it gives the fan base a different feel. So I think it's, I also think you have to get the right games in there. It's a 19,000 beautiful arena. So I think the balance is getting the right games on the right days, making sure people can get there. It's a good time. But I think it's important to have both.
Yeah, obviously the weekends are going to be better for there. In terms of the Big Five, it kind of had to go the way it was going, with the current landscape, with expansion and everything else going on. How do you feel about where it is now, where it's not the true, play everybody all over the place?
You know what, Andy? I don't have a great answer on that yet because, like I thought we played in the Palestra. I thought all the games were in the Palestra. I didn't know. I don't. And the fact that we have to play an away game, like I think we're at LaSalle this year, and then you lose another home game where you play a neutral site in Wells Fargo. I think in the future we're going to have to see how we can benefit everybody a little bit better. Just because from a financial standpoint, losing either two home games or an opportunity for a quad one, I think is going to be really, really big. So I think it's important. I think the Big Five is important. I just think we have to find a way to probably either make it better and get back to playing all five and doing something more of a round robin where financially it makes sense for everybody. Because I just don't know how losing two opportunities for a home game is financial in today's world. It's so much different. You spend $6 million on a roster. Revenue is really important. So I think it's something that's going to have to evolve a little bit.
Last couple quick things here. Rapid fire. Coach's Challenge is new this year. How do you propose to use it?
Yeah, just at the end of the game, because if you're wrong, you lose a timeout. So I think you have to be really strategic on how you do it. I'm going to start practicing it actually once we start official practice. So we'll have it down. I just think, if you're wrong and you lose a timeout and with the amount of timeouts that we don't have, I think it could be really disastrous for you.
Last two things aren't on the docket yet. Quarters or halves?
Quarters.
Why?
Everyone else in the world plays quarters. I mean, high school plays quarters, FIBA plays quarters, NBA plays quarters, AAU plays quarters. I mean, I think we have to get to that point. I know, I think you lose a timeout. Just make the timeouts longer. Make them 2.5, 3 minutes. In the NCAA tournament, they're 9 minutes. So it's like, just make them 3 minutes. Find a way to get the revenue back. I just think we have to go with it with everybody else in basketball.
And lastly, advance the ball. Again, being discussed, not implemented yet.
Yeah, I love that rule. I think I love watching film the next day of all the NBA teams' close games because you get to see what those guys are running in the games. You get to see what kind of strategy they're running. I just think it brings so much more coaching into play. And I think it's actually more exciting for the fans.
All right. Well, we'll see if all that happens. Kevin, you look good in that sort of baby blue.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Ed.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching and listening, everyone. And as always, you can follow all our social media content at the Sideline with a K. Our content appears on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course, YouTube, TikTok, X, and Instagram. Check out all the content at The Sideline with AK.